Hi, welcome to this video. Today I'm going to cover relational database modeling. Relational database model is a logical database that consists of related tables. So in this we are going to come up with a relational schema. This is after we translate or we map the ELD diagram into relational table. So relational schema, this is a visualization of related tables. This will be as a result of mapping where the entities and attributes from our ELD diagram will be mapped into relations. Hence we refer this process as relational database modeling. So relational schema is the final product which we are going to get in this lesson. So beginning quickly, mapping entities and attributes. In relational database modeling, we are going to have new namings here or new key terms. Entity will be transformed as or will be mapped as relation or a table. Now we will be talking relation instead of entity. Attribute will be the column name. Unique attribute, which in the case of ELD diagram is undrained, now it will be the primary key. So two entities or two relations will be related using a foreign key. In other words, another relation P will reference a related relation A using a foreign key. So a foreign key plays the role of depicting a relationship. Therefore, a foreign key is a unique column in a table A, let's say A, that references the primary key of a relation P. So, and what is this relationship? A foreign key helps in depicting a relationship between related relations. To depict this relationship, we have to draw a line. So a line with an arrow is drawn from the foreign key pointing to the primary key in a reference table. So in a one-to-many relationship, we store the foreign key in a one of the related relation, and then we use an arrow to point to the primary key in its respective table. In man-to-man relationship, or what we call M-to-N relationship, this is a unique case where new relation is created. The primary key of the relation are stored as a foreign key. So then arrows are drawn pointing to the respective primary keys in their respective relations. So in our case, we had a man-to-man relation between employee relation and dependent relation. So in this case, we have a new table, which in our case I named depends. So this depends will have the primary key from the employee relation, which is the employee ID, and then we have the dependent ID from the dependent table. So these two primary keys now becomes the foreign keys. So then they will be referencing the respective related tables. So we begin now the mapping. So I splitted it into a single entity. So we are going to map a single entity into a relation, then later we combine or the relation then we come up with a full relational schema. So from employee entity here, as we can see, employee is employee ELD diagram. So this is a visual representation. Now employee is mapped into employee relation. So we have so many representations of this relation, but from draw.io I chose this type of representation where we have the title here of the table, then a column for primary keys and other columns. So here the employee entity is mapped as employee relation, then the unique attribute which we saw in our case of ELD diagram, it was underlined. In this case, it is referred to as a primary key. So these other secondary attributes are listed as normal column names, where as we can see from employee first name, last name, email, employee age, employee hire date, and date of birth. Next, we have enrollment relation. In this case, enrollment entity is mapped as enrollment relation, whereby the unique attribute enrollment ID is mapped as enrollment ID column, which is the primary key. Then the other secondary attributes, enrollment date, enroll status, enroll contribution, are mapped as normal columns. Then in this case, we have a foreign key, which is employee ID. This is going to depict the relationship, whereby we will draw a line pointing to the primary key in employee relation. So next we have benefit relation. In this case, the benefit entity is mapped as a benefit relation. The unique attribute benefit ID is mapped as a primary key, which is used to identify the unique laws in this benefit table. And then the other attributes, benefit name and benefit type, is mapped as normal columns, benefit name and benefit type. So we have also a foreign key, enrollment ID. Next we have provider relation. In this case, provider entity is mapped as a provider relation. The unique attribute provider ID, which in EL diagram was underlined, in this case is mapped as a primary key. Then we have the other attributes like provider name, pro email, and then pro phone is mapped as normal column names. So also we have a foreign key, which is the benefit ID. Next we have dependent relation. Here dependent entity is mapped as dependent relation. So the unique attribute dependent ID, that is in the case of ELD diagram, is mapped as the primary key of the dependent resultant table. So the other attributes like email, employee ID, dependent full name, we have relation and date of birth. These are mapped as the normal column names of the resultant dependent relation. So but in this case we had a unique nature here. In the case of M to N relationship, we need to come up with a new table, and in this case we store the primary keys in that new table. Then from there we draw a line to reference the primary keys in their respective relation. So in this case we add one man-to-man relationship, which was between employee entity and the dependent entity. So after we mapped the employee entity into employee relation, and then dependent entity into dependent relation, so we stored the primary keys employee ID and dependent ID in the new table depends. Then from there we use an arrow to point to their respective primary keys in their respective tables. So this relational schema, I use draw.io, which is a diagramming tool. So the resultant employee benefit tracking database relational schema is as follows. So we have employee relation with its unique or the primary key. Then we have the other column. We have enrollment. So in this case, this relationship, we store this primary key in the enrollment as a foreign key. Then we draw a line pointing to employee ID primary key in the employee relation. So the relationship between benefit and provider, we stored this benefit ID in the provider, then draw an arrow pointing to benefit ID in the benefit relation. Lastly, in the many-to-many relation, here I came up with a new table which is depends, then stored the employee ID, which is the primary key of the employee relation, and then we have the dependent ID, which is the primary key of dependent relation. So these two primary keys are stored in the dependent relation as foreign keys. Then we use an arrow to point to the primary keys of the respective table. So as you can see, this is the final relation schema. So from here we are going to use to generate some SQL and come up with SQL statement, insert statement to insert the table. Probably we will use MySQL database. Then from there we can perform the operations, and later we come up maybe with a user interface. Then probably later we'll come up with a employee benefit management system where I can use popular frameworks like Node.js in the backend. Front end we have HTML, CSS, JavaScript, or Express.js, CSS, or Express.js. Thank you and welcome back.